In 1965, a farmer was going about his day just looking to expand his basement for his home. However, as he was digging 2 meters down, unexpectedly he heard a loud clunk hitting the ground with his spade. He stumbled upon a lower jawbone of a mammoth. He found it upside down on top of another mammoth bone. As he unearthed more, something seemed a little strange, unusual. A complete ring of interlocking jawbones forming a circle began to clearly appear, almost as if a child was stacking Legos on one another. Little did this man know, he discovered something incredibly significant in our understanding of human history, and yet it was buried underneath his home. He wasn't the first man to live and build a home in this soil. People were living here in this exact spot thousands of years earlier, before him and his neighbors would settle in the village of Mezerich near Kiev, Ukraine. These people lived in a very different time and different cultures, customs, and even in a harsher and colder, treeless environment. During this time, herds of woolly mammoths dominated the region. These ancient people not only hunted and consumed their flesh, but utilized their bones for shelter and tools. The stacked mammoth bones and other artifacts found at this site suggest that prehistoric people were living in these small dome-like dwellings 15,000 years ago, dating back to the late Gravettian cultural period. This is one of the oldest examples of human architecture in the world. Professional Russian archaeologists soon took over the project and have found a rich number of artifacts at the Mezerich site. Here they have found evidence of 4 total mammoth bone dwellings, built from a total of 149 mammoth bones. The bones for each dwelling weigh about 45,000 pounds. 2,000 pounds, or 1 ton, was used per square meter of floor space. The walls were stacked with mammoth bones that consisted of rib bones, jaw bones, tusks, and even skulls in a circular pattern. These would have served as a durable frame. Some dwellings were partially supported by wooden frames. Hides may have more than likely been stretched over the structures to provide insulation. This would ultimately keep these people alive in the open steppe and tundra environment of the harsh ice age. Although there is little to no evidence in the archaeological record that suggests hides being draped over their bone structures. However, looking at more recent hunter-gatherer cultures such as the Thule of Arctic North America or even the Yupik of Siberia, for example, they were known to live in very similar environments, and they built whalebone huts, primarily using the ribs and jawbones as a structural frame, typically requiring 15 to 20 whales per house. This is very similar to what we see in a much older site such as Mezerich. These are ideally the same huts, but different use of animals and local resources. These whalebone huts were traditionally covered with animal skins, turf, or moss. At Mezerich, the 4 dwellings had evidence of hearths, bone charcoal, worked bone, marine shells, reindeer antlers, and storage pits. This is a dead giveaway that people have been living in these bone huts. Not only were mammoth bones structured as homes, was the coolest find at this site, but a few other fascinating artifacts have been found in these dwellings. The first item is a worked bone needle, more than likely used to fasten garments. This needle suggests that the humans living here had the innovative and adaptive technology to survive in a cold, harsh climate. Without a needle to sew clothing, they would have not had warm clothing, therefore they wouldn't be protected against the brutal cold and wind of the Ice Age. The second item is an ivory plaque that was carved from mammoth. It is thought to be a map of the bone dwellings at the site. You can even count 4 structures on the plaque that may represent the mammoth bone dwellings of Mezerich. If this is true, then it is certainly considered to be the oldest evidence of a map we have in the world. The last item that must be mentioned is the painted mammoth skull, or also known as the mammoth drum. This mammoth skull was found at the entrance in Bone Dwelling 1. It is noticeably missing the tusk, in which it may have been used for tools or framing material for the huts. It is decorated with a natural pigment called red ochre with marked dots and lines. A popular theory that explains its unique design is that it may represent flames going up with sparks of a fire. The reason it was thought to have been used as a drum was because of an observation analysis on top of the cranium, which had depressions and marks from repetitive beating. Fascinating enough already, mammoth long bones were found beside the cranium, which were thought to have been the drumsticks associated with it. It's 15,000 years ago. On a cold winter's day, there's a blizzard outside, and the only thing keeping you and your clan warm is huddling together in a bone hut covered with fur hides, made from a mammoth you and your peers took down a few months earlier. Now, you are sitting watching the sparks of fire disappear into the air as you space off at the painted mammoth drum in front of you, being beaten rhythmically while those in your clan around you sing and dance in circles by the fire pit in hopes for the winter to be over soon. At another site in Ukraine, at Mezin, the red ochre painted shouldered blade and the jaws of a mammoth may have been used as musical instruments played by striking. Percussion marks similar to the painted mammoth cranium from Mezerich suggest this. Red ochre painting of lines may have a ceremonial or symbolic meaning. At Mazen, a bracelet made of mammoth tusk was decorated with a beautiful yet unique geometric design. It could be worn to show status, but exact meaning is unknown. But it shows that Stone Age people were very sophisticated and had incredible artistic abilities. Mammoth long bones were struck into the ground near hearths. This suggests that this was used as support for a grill or barbecue. This has been observed at another dwelling site at Gonnersdorf, Germany, and at Bone Hut number 2 in Mezerich. Mezerich wasn't the only unique site for mammoth bone dwellings. The phenomenon of building with mammoth bones occurs primarily in Eastern Europe, particularly sites located in what is now known today as Ukraine, Russia, Czech Republic, Poland, and Belarus. Pushkari, one site in Ukraine, shows that there was a pit in a mammoth bone dwelling that was filled with burnt fuel. However, it wasn't wood they were using, instead it was bone. The lack of wood at most of these sites suggests that Eastern Europe was an open steppe with a lack of forest. These ancient hunter-gatherers of the region had to use what they had available, and bones were more abundant and resourceful. At Kostenki 1, located along the Don River in Russia, a big dwelling was unearthed, 35 meters long, 17 meters wide, 425 square meters with a straight line of 8 hearths inside. The structure was made out of mammoth bones and tusks. At Kostenki 4, the floors were covered with red ochre and charcoal with numerous pits inside that may have been used for post holes or cooking or storage pits. Mammoth femurs were struck into the ground to act as workshop tables or anvils. At another site in Ukraine known as Gonsi, 6 mammoth bone dwellings of different sizes were found. Each hut had up to 10 pits. Excavations revealed that there were working areas with hearths, trash piles with remains of flint knapping debris, hearth cleaning, butchering areas for reindeer and other animals. In a nearby ravine, a major mammoth bone bed contained artifacts for butchering and many hearths for defrosting and smoking meat. So, you may be wondering why so many of these mammoth bone dwellings were built. To answer this, we must look at the geography and climatic and environmental situations during this time. Since most of these sites have been found in the eastern portion of Europe, this region was an open steppe, which is a cold, dry, vast, treeless landscape that mammoths would have loved to roam in. Yes, these mighty animals were hunted, but it's also suggested that abundances of bones were found and scavenged for shelter opportunity when nomads were roaming about in the plains. With forests being scarce, it would have made sense for people to utilize large bones to stay warm and cozy. At Mezerich, to construct each of the 4 big huts, it would have required at least 10 people working for 5 to 6 days. Building a house from mammoth bones took a lot of work, and to hunt a mammoth would have also required a lot of critical planning. Hunting them could potentially have severe consequences and high-risk injuries or even a fatal death. If you have made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have learned something new and fascinating today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.